comment on what happened to the elites? I know that Christopher last talked about that with the role of the elites, and I can think back into a period of time where elites acted responsibly.
Yes.
We had the Hays Code in terms of movie codes, and I can remember at one time I was working in the legal department at CBS, and I was working on the case when the Smothers Brothers were fired because they used a curse word. And why don't we have elites exerting leadership in terms of, they see where the culture is going, and yet we see movie executives, TV executives putting this kind of stuff on television, and they say, well, I don't let my kids watch that, but you know, it seems to me that
if
they're
people
motivated.
Want junk, let them have junk. Yeah.
Right. And why aren't they acting responsibly?
Yeah. Well, Fred, you probably know the answer as well as I. I think that if you look at the exponential leap in our understanding of what some have called expressive individualism, and certain notions of individual freedom, you know, over the last half century, really, I think you'll start to come up with a partial explanation, at least, for what Lash called the revolt of the elites. You know, the elite sort of standing down from any responsibility that they believed they had as the safeguarders of the culture. David and I have talked about this a lot with reference to the Protestant mainline and the role they played.
No longer post.
They just haven't been at their post. And what happens is you're sort of running to keep up with the zeitgeist.
He's a big guy, but he can't do it.
He can't do it all by himself. He tries, but you know, it's wearing him down. He needs help. And you've hit on a really key word, the word authority. I mean, one of the things that I've written about is, and it's again not original with me, I don't want to take credit, but I think I've developed it in some helpful ways. The notion that it's very difficult to sustain credible notions of authority, again, in a liberal society, because part of what liberalism historically meant was a dismantling of certain traditions of authority, and those were labeled illegitimate, you know.
Patriarchal and then, family structure, the
illegitimate, we can't have king.
Amassing of political power.
Yeah, that's right. This is all illegitimate, and you keep reducing possible legitimate sources of authority, and pretty soon you wind up with an incapacitation to sustain some notion of authority, which is absolutely central to any reasonable political order, because you have to have some way of distinguishing between authority and illegitimate power, the illegitimate use of power. And the only way we can do that is if we have a notion of legitimate authority. You know, authority that helps to constitute certain institutions, keep them alive. Parents have some authority, teachers have some authority, and this draining away of authority and authoritative relationships has been extraordinary. I remember when I was teaching at Harvard, doing a visiting stint at Harvard in 1994. I remember that because my first grandchild was born in 1994. Otherwise, it would be lost in the blur. But and I was participating in a seminar that was organized by a professor at Harvard named Michael Sandel. And he'd been working with some teachers and parents in Brookline, Massachusetts, and was going to bring them together for a Saturday seminar. And I was going to be participating, and David Reisman, who was still alive, was going to be there. And one of the things that came out was how, if you will, deauthorized, delegitimated teachers felt in relation to their students. That they were going to get into some really deep waters very quickly if they exercised authority in reference to those students, and how parents also believed somehow they didn't have authority in relation to their children. They're afraid it's extraordinary. They're afraid to tell their kids,
Isn't that, I'm not saying it's all one thing, but it seems to me that the refusal to bend the knee to authority of any kind is about as bone deep in the American experience as it's possible.
Don't tread on me.
Our founding document is a divorce document that says you do not have any more authority over me. and we will go west, and we will wear our hair as long as we want to, and we will not do what our fathers tell us, and we simply will, we are Americans, and we do not have to bend the knee. And I know there's another whole thing going on, but it seems to me that this question of the lessening of authority, which interacts with the lessening of trust, is very deep.
Well, but think about the Declaration of Independence too. You know, when they go after King George, it's not, you know, we don't accept his authority anymore. It's that he's exercising ruthless power. He's abused it, and then they list the abuses. They say, let the world. These are usurpations. It doesn't mean you can't have legitimate authority. You've got usurpations.
British at that time.
Yeah. So, you know, you have to have legitimate authority in order for someone to usurp it in a way that's illegitimate, in other words. So it was a criticism of usurpations.
Yeah.